In today's video, I'm going to take this Denon and replace it with this Onkyo. Am I crazy? Yeah, probably, but you'll find out why. So I've got this Denon that I've been using for a little while. I've ordered it probably a few years ago, but actually only installed it maybe less than a year ago. And mostly it's just used for gaming. And one of the reasons I got it was because it had the 4K 60, but I had it sitting in storage for a while before I was able to install it. And in the meantime, all these really cool HDMI 2.1 features started coming out. I kind of wanted the variable refresh rate. 120 hertz frame rates would have been nice. But what this receiver has is the high-res audio, and it had the Odyssey. And I guess one of the new hot topics right now is the fact that the new Onkyo has the DIRAC audio configurator. So I'm going to try that out. I don't really see a huge use for it in such a small room. I mean, I have two ceiling speakers. It's only a 9-channel system in here. So there's not a ton of space that really requires that kind of calibration, but I'm going to do it anyways. So the receiver's hooked up to this panel in the back. And right now, I don't have a whole lot of documentation on everything. I kind of just have everything written down when I first installed it. And yeah, I got the media room, the server room, the behind the screen and the theater room. There's just all kinds of connections going from one room to the other. So I have to kind of go through and design all these out in CAD and make them look nice so I can put a little binder together. But I'm going to need to reference this to get this hooked back up, because this is a mess back here, as you can see. And right now I've got the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5, and the PC, which is hooked onto this 8K cable. I'm not sure it's actually 8K. I don't have a real way to test that right now, but that's running into another room in the utility area of the basement, which is probably a good 50 feet away. So I'm going to pause this video, disconnect everything, pull this thing out, and see if I can't get the Onkyo hooked up. Before I get the Onkyo set up, I just wanted to do a little comparison of the two. Onkyo is a much bigger unit compared to the Denon, but the Denon actually is rated at a higher power, so you would think that it would be a larger receiver. Looking at the backs of the units, you can see that the Denon has a whole lot more little RCA connectors for just about any analog device you might have, but who really needs all of that? And then you look at the Onkyo, which is a lot less going on, but it's still a lot more space. So things are kind of spread out a bit more than the Denon. Also, the Denon has gold-plated RCAs, which the Onkyo does not. It has the old standby tin or whatever. Looks like the speaker connectors are identical. Nothing too fancy there. Other than that, looks like the Onkyo gives you just about what you'll need. I'm going to be using the 8K output of the Onkyo with this fiber optic cable. It's the Rupio. Come on. It's the Gen 3. So I originally was using these to hook up the consoles, the Xbox and the PlayStation 5, but the cables that came boxed with those were surprisingly good. So those work just fine. And then I'm going to be using, like I said earlier, I've got this 8K, however that's pronounced. Like I said, I really don't know if if I can test that for accuracy, but it says 48 gigabit on the specs. I guess we'll find that out. And then for subwoofers, you know, I've got these 12 inchers here, the Klipsch model. They're not too spectacular. I mean, they work. Like I said before, it's a small room. We don't really need a ton of bass in here. But I've traditionally just used a gold-plated RCA splitter. You can see that with the SVS cables. So those are pretty decent. And then I just use the single sub out. I know a lot of people are interested in knowing if the receiver will do dual sub configurations. I will not be able to test that. It really doesn't apply to my situation because, you know, you got a sub right there, you got a sub right there. Doesn't need a ton of calibration. So onward. Power this on for the first time, see what happens. There we go. All right, English. Okay, I've got my network plugged in. I'm not going to do it Wi-Fi. And I'll accept. Okay. I've got all that already. All right, let's go ahead and run the firmware update. Okay, so I downloaded the firmware off the Onkyo website and I formatted a USB drive to FAT32 like it suggested. Transferred the files to the USB drive. So maybe there was a problem with the network connection, I don't know, but we are going to try this directly off of a thumb drive. So USB, finally. Alright, so apparently there was something wrong with either the Ethernet connection, my network connection, or the receiver did not actually set up a network. It didn't communicate when we first configured it. So I'm going to go ahead and let that finish, and then I will resume recording when it hits 100%. Alright, now that the firmware is done, let's see what happens. I'm going to power it off. So it wants us to go back through the settings. Now we're going to do speaker setup. Let's do that. Speaker 7. All right, that looks right. That's right. That's about it. It actually had it exactly right off the bat. And when I set up my Denon, it was just all over the place as far as speaker configurations go. Well, let's just look at some of the different options. That's interesting. All right, let's move on. So I got all the speakers plugged in correctly. That's a plus. ARC. I'm not using ARC. I have everything going right into the receiver and then to the TV. So let's skip that. And then I guess this is the DIRAC setup. So I have a mic. It came with a mic. Alright, this is it. I went ahead and put it on a tripod. It's a big cord. So I'm going to go ahead and get that plugged in. So I've gone ahead and set up the mic in my seating position. So that should be pretty accurate, I hope. No, I'm not going to use Chromecast right now. Wired. Whoa. Fuck, what happened? Okay, so I went and got a tablet, tried to install the DIRAC Live app on there from the Google Play Store. Told me the tablet was incompatible, I guess because it was old. And of course, you know, I had another tablet laying around. That one seems to be working okay, so I installed the app, went in using an anonymous account. So I didn't feel like setting it all up right away. But this is it. It actually has a single seated position. So there's that part. And then of course, you know, I have the mic already to go. Hopefully this little stand isn't going to interfere with the calibration process, but let's see what happens here. All right, well, I don't even know if I did that right, so maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Let's try and see if we can get a PC to show. Ah, there we go. Okay. Well, that's a plus. It's the gaming PC. I got a RTX 3090 in there. Let's see what it has to say about that. $30. Well, that's nice. Not detecting 120, which means I probably have to go into the menu of the receiver and set it for 8K. There we go. Okay, 8K enhanced. I'm not going to be using those other inputs, so we'll just leave it at the first three. I know the Xbox is set up on that setting. PC is on that. PlayStation 5 is on that. The rest are unused. Although this, from what I understand, the first three are 40 megabit, while the remaining are less than that. I'll put the specs up on the video so you can see. So even if I wanted to use the other ones for something, I wouldn't even get the full bandwidth out of it. Okay, so I did a lot of setup. I did a lot of audio testing. The Denon receiver that I was using would pass through the DSD audio formats, both through the HEOS app and directly from the receiver's interface. I tried it multiple times on the Onkyo and it just it just won't work. A lot of the files don't even show up in the list, and when they do, it won't acknowledge them as a file format. The high-res FLAC files work, and they sound great. The receiver sounds amazing, but the DSD files, for some reason, the Onkyo just will not acknowledge them. So I'm going to show you that using the Onkyo app on the tablet. So here we are. We've got the Onkyo music control. I went ahead and installed that. And there's the receiver. I use the media server option, and then I just use my Plex server. So music, HD audio, folder. I have audio file speaker set up. Some of you might be familiar with this. It's been on the forums a few times. So here, if we go to 192 24-bit and just select anything from there, it'll tell you right there what the resolution is of the audio. Of course, I have to. So that'll confirm that it's reading that format. So if we go back to the DSD files, there's nothing there. Normally, all of that would be listed in there, but they're not even showing. So 9624, 19224, DSD, nothing. All right, so let's go to another file. I've got ET, Super Audio CD, it's 2488, so that'll probably play. So because it's FLAC, and that plays. Let's go to Santana. That is 24-bit 176. That should play also, as long as it's in FLAC format. Okay, so that's playing. This stutters. it won't play it without stuttering for some reason. And I play this quite often through the Denon without any problem. So I'm not sure if it's just the wireless app or Onkyo's decoder or whatever. So that's Super Audio. See, the system obviously won't acknowledge any ISO files. It won't acknowledge any 5.1 files, which I was hoping the new receiver would do, and it won't, because what I have here is a 5.1 version on FLAC format, and I'm going to get an error message. Server is temporarily unavailable. Well, that's because it won't read the file format. So 5.1 multi-channel FLAC files will not work. I've tried all of this directly on the receiver. So I know that this isn't an issue with this program or the Android app. It's strictly the Onkyo not being compatible with the file formats. These are all in ISO, so I'm not going to see anything. You have to use like Kodi or even your desktop PC with FooBar and all the DSD plugins and the ISO plugins to get it all to work, which I've been doing. It was nice to run things directly through the HEOS app when I had it. I can still do that in the theater room with the Denon's big brother, the 6400H or whatever, H, something like that. Michael Jackson, we've got the DSF files, won't show them. FLAC, okay, it shows them. And again, we've got 24-bit 96, which is pretty standard HD audio formats. So that's that. The Onkyo kind of failed when it comes to the high-res audio support. Even though it sounds great and does all the FLAC files, it will not do the DSD as advertised according to its own advertising brochure, the data sheet. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. We have, I'm just going to show you the menu system here briefly. You got the in and out assignments, TV out. Dolby Vision is not highlighted for me. Super resolution is not highlighted. And you got the 8K and 4K formats, different zones, languages. And then you can assign which HDMI input you want to assign to the name that's on the receiver. A lot of the standard stuff you see on pretty much every AVR. The navigation menu is fairly decent. It's very straightforward. Whoops, let's get back into that menu. Configuration, we were in there earlier. Crossovers, if you want to adjust that. You have the 80 Hz THX mode, and you can manually adjust it in 10 Hz increments. So I'm going to say overall this is a pretty great receiver. It sounds amazing. I did a lot of multi-channel audio. I couldn't play anything for you because of the copyright police, Gestapo. You know how they are. They'll come breaking down my door before I even get the video posted. So I didn't bother with any of that. But I did a lot of testing, a lot of high-res audio formats, multi-channel stuff like the Beatles, Abbey Road, and the White Album, things like that. It all sounded great. So if you can get your hands on this receiver and you're not really all that obsessed with DSD audio streaming, I'd say go for it. I'm going to post another video of the gaming features, the 4K 120 I'm having issues with that on my PC right now. I don't think my HDMI cable will work. But the cables that came with the PlayStation and the Xbox probably will be fine. So I'm going to test that feature on those devices. And I guess the next video will be gaming related. HDMI 2.1 features. So see you then.